The Laval Rocket had a 3-game road trip last week, and although it probably didn't go exactly the way they wanted to, let's see if we can find some silver linings, shall we? We've got lots to cover today. Habs fans, if you're looking for news about the Laval Rocket and how Canadiens prospects are doing in the AHL, then you've come to the right place. And if you're new here, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at the Rocket Rewind, recap what happened for the Laval Rocket in their games last week. We're going to do a prospect breakdown where we're going to give you kind of some highlights and lowlights on the Canadiens prospects. I'm going to choose a standout star from all of those prospects on the team, and then we'll do a Laval look ahead and get you ready for what's on the schedule this week. Last week it was 3 games on the road, starting with 2 in Rochester against the Americans. Yes, they've really played the Americans quite often in this early part of the season, which likely means at some point we're going to have a stretch that they don't see them for a little while, which probably would be okay for the Laval Rocket bench because Rochester has given them plenty of trouble so far this year. Both of these games in Rochester went to overtime, but unfortunately, those were the only points that Laval picked up in both of those games, losing both of these contests in overtime. Let's start with the one on Wednesday. They lost this one 4-3 in overtime. Yoel Armia was still on the roster. He hadn't yet been recalled to Montreal. And he did something pretty spectacular, scoring his second consecutive shorthanded goal in this game. He has been a wonder on special teams on the penalty kill, and that was his second shorty of the week. There was some back and forth between both teams, but ultimately and unfortunately, it was Laval coming out on the losing side of things in overtime in that one. So fast forward then to Friday night where the rematch took place. This would be the 5th time in the regular season that these two teams would be meeting. This one was slightly more tightly played. This was a 3-2 loss in overtime. Some of the prospects lit up the score sheet in this one. Both Riley Kidney and Jan Mysak getting on the board in this game. Things went to overtime, and it looked like it was headed to a shootout, but Rochester scored with just 6 seconds left in overtime. A dagger to the heart of the Laval Rocket as they dropped another one in overtime in Rochester. The team then boarded the bus, drove on down the road to Syracuse for a rematch against the Crunch. Now, if you'll remember a month ago, the first time they played the Crunch this season was in Syracuse. This is Joel Bouchard's new team. He is back coaching in the AHL, and the last time these two teams met, Syracuse blanked Laval 5-0. So could this be a bit of a redemption game for Laval? Could they solve Joel Bouchard's team? Well, I can happily report they didn't get shut out again. And in fact, those same prospects were lighting the lamp on a second consecutive night. Riley Kidney getting on the board again, Jan Mysak getting on the board again. This one, of course, physical and chippy. These two teams never really care for one another very much. And it was a bit of an entertaining game. For the 3rd consecutive night, it went to overtime. This one, however, did go to the shootout. But the Laval Rocket, against Matt Tompkins, who had been sent down from Tampa Bay, he had played a couple of games in Tampa Bay in the absence of Vasilevsky. He was actually making his season debut for the Syracuse Crunch on this night, and the Laval Rocket could not get a puck past him in the shootout. So it took only one shootout goal by Syracuse to take the 2 points on this night. So that's 3 losses. This was a 4-3 loss in the shootout for Laval. 3 games, all went to overtime. One of them went to the shootout, and Laval, unfortunately, couldn't clinch the win in any of them. As far as the line combinations, it was a little bit kind of touch and go there for a little bit because, of course, we know defenseman Jayden Struble had been recalled to Montreal. He has been this season one of the most solid and dependable defensemen on the back end for JF Uhl. And Yoel Armia then was recalled as well to join the Canadiens on their California road trip. So that left Uhl without a couple of his big pieces of the puzzle. However, by Saturday night, we did see Jared Davidson get back into the lineup from injury. John Parker Jones was back in the lineup from injury. Riley McKay came back after missing a game or two. So there were some replacements, but really difficult to say that they were replacing such big pieces that had been recalled to Montreal. Where does that put Laval in the standings now? Well, they're boasting a record of 5-9-3-1. That is a .389 winning percentage. They continue to struggle. It's been a difficult season for the Laval Rocket, to be sure. And this is the part of the season already that we're just looking for the silver linings. We just have to keep reminding ourselves this season is supposed to be about development. And in a moment in the prospect breakdown, we're going to talk about how that is still happening despite the wins not really being there. So that record puts them 6th in the North Division in points. If we're looking at winning percentage, they're still in last place in 7th in the North Division. The same thing goes for the Eastern Conference. They are sitting points-wise at 13th in the Eastern Conference. Winning percentage-wise, they are at 14th. And in terms of the league overall, 24th in the league. If you're looking at winning percentage, 28th. Let's get to the prospect breakdown. Let's talk about a little bit of good. Riley Kidney. Absolutely, hands down, Riley Kidney. In fact, if you saw last week's show, you'll remember I mentioned Riley Kidney last week was really starting to make an impression. He was starting to get some points after going the entire first part of the season with only 1 assist on the first 10 or so games in the season. Well, since then, something has started to click for Riley Kidney, and he is contributing each and every night with goals, with assists. He is really starting to kind of come into his own. I'm very excited to see what kind of path forward that's going to mean for Riley Kidney. In addition to that, Jan Mysak has had a really good week. You'll remember, Jan Mysak, back in the rookie tournament in September in Buffalo, JF Wool had mentioned to the media that, Mysak isn't one that they really rely on to produce points in the AHL and that type of thing. And I have complained in previous seasons and in this season that I feel like Jan Mysak doesn't get given enough opportunities to succeed and put in positions to succeed. Maybe there's maybe the coach feels there's not enough effort there or something. I'm not really sure what the reason is for that. And I certainly know that the player needs to earn his ice time and earn his positioning, but I think he's got more to give. And after that had happened in the rookie tournament, Jan Mysak went and scored in both of the next 2 games in the rookie tournament. Kind of like, okay, well, I'll show you. I can produce. Well, he's doing that again this season as well. And as I mentioned, he scored in back-to-back games this past week along with Riley Kidney. Jan Mysak has offense to offer, and I think if we get to see him move up the lineup a little bit because of injuries and recalls, we could see more good things from him. The more his confidence gets boosted, I think the better Jan Mysak is going to be. The other thing that's good about the week, well, they did manage to get 3 points. At least they were able to force overtime all 3 times this past week, and they did manage to eke 3 points out of this road trip. So if we flip to the bad, that means, however, but they didn't secure the 2nd point in any of those games. In fact, those 3 losses put the Laval Rocket on a 5-game losing streak right now, something that they're going to hope to correct this coming week for sure. In terms of the other bad with the team right now, in terms of prospects, I'm not going to point out anything specifically about the prospects, but just basically the team overall. They are still the team with the most goals against. They have 77 goals against on the season, and special teams has really started to fall apart, particularly the power play. The power play is 25th in the league. The penalty kill is 27th in the league. The only thing that's really their saving grace is when Yoel Armia is in the lineup and he's potting shorthanded goals, but he's up with Montreal right now, so that's not really helping much. So a poor penalty kill. They're in the box quite often. 77 goals against on the season. There are a lot of things that need to start kind of gelling together a bit better for this Laval team, but we can be encouraged that there are some good things happening amongst the prospects. And as far as my standout star for the week, well, I'm giving that to Riley Kidney, because for the second week in a row, he is really making a good impression and really showing some of his strengths out there on the ice. So I mentioned that Laval will look to snap this losing skid that they're on this coming week. They do have a bit of practice this week as they are back in Quebec practicing at Place Bell. They've only got 2 games on the schedule this week, and it's not until this weekend. However, it will be a bit different because they will climb on a plane and they will fly out to BC to take on the Abbotsford Canucks. This was the team, the Vancouver Canucks AHL affiliate. This is the team that they opened the season against on home ice in Laval, and Abbotsford really kind of gave them a tough time in those opening games at home back in early October. So this is 2 10 p.m. Eastern Time starts, Friday night and Saturday night. So it's going to be a little late for us on the East Coast to keep an eye on things. And Abbotsford is actually having a very strong season. Those first games against Laval to kick off the season were absolutely not a fluke. They are sitting quite high in the standings. They are 11-5-1 on the season, sitting 6th overall in the AHL, and they're 6-4 in their last 10 games played. Arshdeep Bains is one of the guys that they've got on their roster who has been leading some of the charts in the scoring race at some points during the season. So if they're looking to snap this losing streak, they're going to have a bit of a challenge on the road out in British Columbia. We're looking at a time change and a team that is definitely going to give them not going to roll over and just hand them 2 points easily. Hey, if this is the kind of content that you're enjoying from all of our programming here on the Rocket Sports Media YouTube channel, if you could do me a favor and just take a moment and tap that subscribe button, hit the like button, of course, and tap the notification bell, because we've got 3 different shows that come out all during the week, and we don't want you to miss a single one of them. And one of them happens to be the video version of our flagship podcast, the Canadiens Connection podcast. If you don't subscribe to Canadiens Connection already on your favorite podcast or app, music playing app like Spotify, then you can do that right here and listen to the Canadiens Connection podcast. In fact, in this past week, hosts Rick Stevens and Michael Spinella talked about the fact that it's starting to be selling season, I think, for the Montreal Canadiens. They have got assets to put on the block, and Kent Hughes should be fielding phone calls, and they went on a deep dive into this topic. Who could be moved? What could the value be? What would Montreal be looking for in return? Could the Canadiens get in early on trading season? If you missed that episode, well, guess what? You're in luck. You can check it out by clicking on this video right here, and I'll see you again next time.